Okay, let's talk about safely reholstering if you carry your gun in the appendix position. So most of the controversy surrounding appendix carry has to do with the idea that the gun is pointing at your femoral artery or your genitals or both. Makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Now, where we see negligent discharges that result in personal injury is most often in the act of reholstering. So what I want to point out is that reholstering is inherently dangerous if you do it wrong, no matter what body location you wear the gun at. So as an example, I see this all the time. Strong side hip carriers, they finish shooting, they come back to the holster and they do this. They sweep the muzzle right over the top of their hip and their leg. And if you were to torch one off at this point accidentally, you'd put it right through your femoral artery. Even worse is when you get guys who wear behind the hip and they come back to reholster like this, and they'll be pointing the muzzle in towards themselves. And again, if they were to torch one off at this point, it would go through your hips. It would absolutely destroy your whole pelvis area, okay? It would be a bad day. So this idea that reholstering only in this location is somehow more dangerous is ridiculous. It can all be dangerous if you do it wrong. So in particular with appendix carry, to do it right, when you're done with your shooting task and you're ready to reholster, you want to come back to what Todd Lewis Green used to refer to as a hard mental break. This is now a break from the action. We've done whatever we're doing with the gun. We now make a mental pause and we are ready now to reholster. So before we do that, we visually inspect our trigger finger. We make sure it's up along the top of the slide, nowhere near the trigger guard or the trigger, and then we visually inspect the entry to the holster. Lift your cover garment up and inspect the entry to the holster. Now, to safely reholster, you can tilt your hips outward like this. What can help is if you draw your dominant leg backwards a little bit so that you get even more tilt. So now tilting your hips forward, you'll notice that as I reholster the gun, if the gun were to discharge, it would actually fly into the dirt in front of my feet and not hit my body. So that's how to safely reholster. And I would argue the fact that the holster is in the front of your body makes it that much safer and more controlled, because I can visually inspect the holster. We make sure we don't wear anything with drawstrings or anything that could get into the holster. But every time we reholster, we're going to make the hard mental break. We visually verify that our trigger finger is well away from the trigger. We visually verify that the holster entrance is clear. And when we reholster with our hips tilted forward, it's going to ensure that if we were to have a mistake, it's actually not going to hit any part of our body. So my argument is, if you do it right, reholstering in the appendix position is actually safer than reholstering anywhere else on the waistline.